Okay.
All
Why don't we
right.
start off with the poll, if that's okay? You think
Oh
this is
yeah,
Sure.
let's do that.
All right. Feel free to let us know what you've done, where you might stand on this little poll here. Yeah. Feel free to jump on in and answer.
Yeah, we're just curious. I know we just heard a little bit about it, but just a little bit more.
So,
Cool.
right. Are they able to see the answers?
Yeah, here, I'll hit end polling and then share results. Yeah. So it looks like we have a lot of interest, but based in the US, travel abroad periodically, live abroad, maybe some digital nomads, and just I'm not really sure, but get paid while traveling. All of these are great. And we're going to hopefully talk about all these different ideas today.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and begin.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we are both travelers at heart, very inspired by travel, and really liked this quote from President Obama. And next slide. And just a little bit we'll talk a little bit more about our kind of experiences abroad, but we're pretty excited. This is a fun kind of melding of all of our interests together. So again, I'm Debbie, she, her, and some of the things that I have done that have brought me abroad. So as an undergraduate, I studied performance studies, which is kind of like adaptation of literature to the stage, so related to theater. I was involved in a lot of student theater productions. And that took me to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, where I worked for a summer. It's a very, very large, the largest theater festival in the world, held every summer in Edinburgh, Scotland. And different production companies run a venue or groups of venues. So I worked for one of the production companies. I was there for about 5 weeks, worked around the clock, and it was crazy and a lot of fun. And then I also worked as an ESL, or English as a Second Language teacher, in Prague in the Czech Republic. I took a TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language certification class, and we'll talk a little bit more about those, and I'm happy to answer questions or point you in those directions. But that's a good idea if you're kind of not sure what you want to do abroad, but you would like to do so and get paid for it. In the TEFL training course, you learn about kind of how to be a teacher. The only requirements generally are that you have a bachelor's degree and you're a native English speaker. So I went there right after I graduated with my bachelor's, with just that degree and a lot of optimism and enthusiasm. And then after I came back to the US, and before I came to DePaul, I worked at another university in international student and scholar services. So helping international students who come to US universities. There are a lot of kind of rules and regulations that the US government requires, and it requires specialized advisors to help students follow all those rules. But also I got to kind of help introduce students to American culture and the university, and take them to football games and organize Super Bowl parties and talk about elections and holidays. And I did also get to do some international travel. I also planned orientations, and we had orientations in the fall in the US, but we also started to do overseas orientations in China, India, and Korea, the 3 countries where we had the most international students. And I got to go to China and Korea twice. In the picture in the bottom right, I'm in Shanghai, China. That's their kind of famous skyline. So that was really exciting, just to be able to see where our students were from, and very start to understand their country and their culture, and to get to travel there. I was able to both times tack on some personal travel afterwards. And my advice would be, both travel while you're young. I'm really glad that I lived and worked overseas for a whole year after my undergraduate studies. And I had a professor who really encouraged that, who said, yes, of course, you can do this anytime, but do it, right after college while you're young. You don't have furniture or pets or a spouse or a kid or responsibilities. Just do it now. But I also think you're never too old to travel or to work abroad. I think might be slightly more logistically complicated, but it's definitely still doable, and I could not recommend it more.
That makes a great segue for because we're going to talk about being old. I kind of did mine a little unorthodox approach. I went to grad school and I thought I wanted to be a professor. I have a speech and theater background, and I do enjoy still teaching, but I really like empowering. That's really gets me mostly motivated. It's the combination of both those things. So I found a job in downstate Illinois, and I'm not saying that I love living in downstate Illinois, but I did get to travel all around the place. I'm from the Southeast in Tennessee, and I was able to provide people scholarships and opportunities to live in brand new residence halls, and it was near St. Louis, and so I was able to bring out it was like advocacy meets sort of like recruiting, and all my stuff was paid for, all my hotels, all my food. I had a car, and when you're in your 20s, it's a pretty fun job, and everybody else is kind of young too. And so I did that for a while, but there was an opportunity to move to Chicago, and I worked outside. I worked remotely in my apartment, so I didn't have a team that was near me, and so I traveled all around in Chicago. And then DePaul had an opening. Fast forward about 10 years, and I started teaching an online class for internships. I then said, why am I here? I have 4 weeks off, 5 weeks off, 6 weeks off, because I worked at DePaul so long. Why don't I just get the heck out of Chicago? So I've made it for the last 10 years, I've left the United States and lived abroad for 6 weeks. Now, I don't know if I should say lived or probably traveled, but sometimes it feels like you're living, especially depending on the kind of country. But for 5 and 6 weeks, I become a digital nomad every year. And I go to some country and it's me and the laptop and wherever I'm at. And it's a lifestyle that isn't for everybody, but for someone who enjoys, digging in, and if you want to connect with people remotely, and that's enough for you, I would recommend, especially if you have an independent side to you, thinking about being a digital nomad. So that's where it allowed me to travel to all 6 continents within like a 5-year period. So let's go ahead and move on. So I created this slide we did this for the first time. When was that? Back in summer, I guess, right?
So yeah, last summer.
Yeah. And our vice president was like, why are you guys creating we can't do anything. And I was like, well, but if folks want to work abroad, especially, they really kind of need to start planning a little bit ahead. Things have changed. Fast forward, what is it now? 8 months later. So about 15 minutes ago, I said, what is now? For looking for now, I typed in travel. I typed in frequent travel. There's quite a few positions, especially if you look all around, not just Chicago. So there are positions if you're looking for something, especially domestic, but there's also teaching abroad that's open. So there are things that are happening, but you can also think about things next year. So if you're a first-year student, or even if you're a graduate student, you can plan these things out further. So
yeah, I think we kind of already did that.
we did the poll.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the poll. I noticed that all of you most of you are thinking internationally, but there are a couple that are maybe thinking domestically. So we'll try to engage both audiences. And then, I'll say, so what I would do, if you have a pen or a pencil or whatever handy, you don't need to necessarily write it down, but it might help you to visualize this a little bit. If you do have something you write with, I would draw like a line going up and down, like an X, like X and Y, kind of like that graph, where the higher you go on X is the higher earnings. And then at the bottom, I would draw the line going across, kind of like a giant L. And then at the bottom, that would be the more education. The further you go right, the more education, the higher you go up, the more money. Does that make sense? And so that's how we want to try to help you understand these positions based on income and education. More education. So low, we have low, medium, and high. Low is, so basically anybody can do these jobs for the most part. Low training. Medium is probably going to be the biggest part. It's kind of like a bell curve. Most college students are targeting these kinds of positions. Often they require, some kind of degree or training. High, almost always specialized training or advanced degrees. And so let's go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah, so in terms of positions that require lower skills or lower education, but also probably have lower pay, hotels, and you'll see hotels show up a little bit later when we talk about more management positions, but kind of basic hotel position, working in a restaurant, in a hotel, working in housekeeping or facilities. You would want to check kind of individual hotel chains or companies to see if they would hire someone from a different country. The laws are going to be different depending on where you are from and where you're going, but that's an option. Working as an au pair, this is working as a childcare, like a nanny or babysitter for a family in a different country, usually in Europe. Certain countries will have a special au pair visa that you're eligible for, typically if you're under a certain age. So if you're under, 25 or 27. So that's something to think about as a post-graduation option. Often you would, or even before, you would live in the family's house and take care of the children, maybe do some light housework, and in exchange get to live in their house and have meals and become part of the family. Working as a tour guide, working as a bartender, again, in a restaurant as well. These generally don't require a lot of education, maybe just some basic training. And something like a truck driver or agricultural worker, again, kind of depends on where in the world you're going, but is typically can be more seasonal and doesn't require a lot of advanced preparation or skills.
And so for those of you who have your X and Y, I would say the ones in here that would be, most of these are going to be on the left-hand side of the model, but the ones that are on the top, I would say probably something like bartender and truck driver. Going to be where the education's low, but the money is highest. Sometimes hotel employees, but really more the tour truck drivers. Yeah. All right. So the medium skill education level, this is going to be your big part of your bell curve. This is going to be the majority of positions. This is what college students are often looking at. Recruiters, what I did. A lot of travel, a lot of talking to students and letting them know the kinds of information they need. And these are like high school students generally, or community college students. It's a lot of fun to engage with folks. You really have to enjoy talking to people. Same thing with ESL and as an ESL teacher. Some will require certifications. There's 2 and 3 different organizations out there. One's right underneath the brown line. And I think it's Diversity Stop.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I was just going to add to that, there's TEFL, TEFL, Teaching English as a Foreign Language. There's TESOL. And for all of these, you can either choose to take this course in person, like at this school that's right under the Diversity Brown line. It's usually a month-long kind of intensive course. You can take it in a different country. I actually took it in the Czech Republic because I knew I wanted to be there and I knew the program would help me to find a job afterwards. You can also take the course online. And you could take that now, you can take that, when you're graduating, and generally the certification is good for several years, or it's unlimited, like your degree would be. And that way, also, if you take a course and get a certification, not only do you have that internationally recognized certification, but a lot of the schools have a good network of alumni who are working in different English language schools and international schools around the world, and they know about a lot of the job openings, and often they can help you to find those.
Last thing, I would say there are some programs where you don't necessarily have to have the certification. So yeah, if you look at like a place like Dave's ESL Cafe, They will have things posted daily, just to give you an idea. But if you want to talk more, or if you want to do some research, I would just like Google teaching abroad in Nepal, and there's a resource page out there. In fact, I think we might even have that kind of page at the end in our resource.
Yeah, we do. I'm gonna add Dave's ESL Cafe into the chat as well.
Yeah. Digital nomadism can be all kinds of different areas, and especially after working remotely, that has grown tremendously. There are actually websites out there for folks who want to work independently and remotely, and who may want to travel abroad, and that provide actual rankings of the countries, and they talk about the Wi-Fi signal to the housing to the nightlife, if it's good for young folks. So I can't remember off the top of my head what that site's called, but if you want to look around and like type in digital nomad and then rating and ranking, it'll actually rate like how many Airbnbs are in cities and things like that. And there's a lot of different, but talking to folks, you have opportunities to talk to these folks now. We even provided an example of a couple in our alum at the end. You know, I didn't get a chance to perform a lot after I graduated, just a little bit. Do you want to add your 2 cents in there, Debbie?
Yeah, well, I would just add, especially for Kiji and anyone else who's interested. I have a couple of friends who worked as performers on a cruise ship, people who've worked at different arts festivals around the world, who've gone on tour with a particular production, whether that's a tour in the US or a tour in different countries. So that's a potential. I think it's probably hard to get like a visa to live and work somewhere by yourself. But if you're part of a company or part of an organization that is kind of traveling and touring, then they'll be able to manage all the details and logistics for you, and you'll get to focus on the performing and get to see a lot of different places.
And you're the event planner now, so we might as well take that knowledge while we have you.
Exactly, yeah. People who plan events in conferences or other events, cultural events, weddings, etc., in different cities and different countries might be able to do some traveling depending on the company, depending on the organization as well.
And then if you're the kind of person who likes to help people, if you have a lot of patience, if you don't mind, you know, it might even be something, maybe a career change. Technical customer service is growing.
Mhm.
So that might be another way to work remotely. Right. And then the high skills.
Yeah, so these might require more, more training or more experience. SAP is some kind of computer software, but certain companies might send you to different cities or different countries to train organizations who are using this new software. And I'm just going to jump down to management consultant. I would say kind of management consultant, kind of banking, finance, any of these. If you're working for a big company like that, they might have projects or offices in different countries. And they might even have, some of them even have specific programs designed for a young associate. They might call you to spend a year working in a different office. I know a couple people who have worked for these big management companies and have spent a year working in Switzerland or in Singapore or in different offices around the world. And it's typically relatively seamless because you're still working for the same company, just in a different country. But those types of positions typically require a bachelor's degree or higher. Geologist sounds super cool, or archaeologist. You might be searching for historical markers in a different country, or you might be looking at the different plants or different rocks and stones in geology. A geographer might also be doing something similar in other countries, but that would require that kind of background. And same with something like a hotel manager, hotel concierge. This would require probably a business background or even a business degree and some experience working in customer service or in hotel administration, like working in the front desk. But that can be a great opportunity to work in a different country. You probably get a lot of good perks, like being able to stay in your hotels, other hotels in other countries. So that could be really nice. And if you wanted to move to another country, there might be another hotel there for you to work.
That's right. That's a good point. So one of the things the Career Center has been working on for the past year is to get across the idea of upskilling. All of you have access to a site called LinkedIn Learning. Some of you have had a chance to, I'd say, I put it this way, 95% of students know about LinkedIn, but I would say almost 95% of students do not know about LinkedIn Learning. So if you want to, you can Google LinkedIn Learning and DePaul. And if it's writing that you enjoy and you want to be a digital nomad, maybe you could learn to do some grant writing or project management or some technical writing. And that might give you the ability to float around and travel and still be able to get paid. You could go on a site like Upwork and gain some experience conducting research or some additional writing and design skills. But LinkedIn Learning is a great place to start because it's free for DePaul. You do lose that after you graduate, and I think it's a good place to start. Coursera, there's other sites out there as well. But all of these can, and you can see some of the points that we've mentioned here. There's a spectrum. LinkedIn Learning would be on the cheap free side, the left-hand side. The right-hand side would be something expensive, like taking technical classes or like a boot camp, where they train you and you're certified and you're ready to go to work. That would be on the far end. The other ones are somewhat in between, like, taking some language skills courses or the TOEFL courses. These are a little bit more affordable, but all of this is kind of on a spectrum in terms of affordability and time commitment.
Yeah, we also just wanted to point out, I know a number of other DePaul students have used this virtual time to do a virtual international internship. And that's a really great opportunity. If you find an organization that you're interested in, find out if they have a project or they have an internship program. Take advantage of the virtual environment and get that international experience. We also have through DePaul and through our office, we have the Internship Plus funding, and that's if you find an internship in another country and is unpaid, you can apply for Internship Plus funding, again, even if the employer is in a different country. So I think this is a great opportunity to do that, or to shadow, or to try to do a project for a company in a different country.
And so another thing that, besides upskilling, is that we're trying to get across to students to help empower them, is to help give you an opportunity to connect with people who graduated from DePaul, who are the alumni. Where are they? Who are these folks, and where can you find them? So 3 kind of buckets down below. I mentioned LinkedIn, so we can start there. One fun thing to do if you get a chance, if you have a LinkedIn account, is to just Google DePaul LinkedIn and alum. That is a rabbit hole. Grab some coffee, grab some tea, whatever it is, because you can get lost in a great way. You can nuance your research. I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to find out about career paths with your major, your interest, your skills, a certain country that you're targeting, if you want to relocate to a different geography. There's so many ways that you can search in LinkedIn. I think starting there, I would start there because it's just a bigger library. It's 14. I think the number is 140,000 people on LinkedIn that are DePaul alum. And you can search those folks and narrow it down. Ask is, for those who don't know, Alumni Sharing Knowledge. It has been around for 20 years. These folks are volunteering to be contacted. So if you go to LinkedIn and you search, you can narrow it down a little bit. And then you're like, oh, let me see if I can find, these look kind of cool. Let me see if I can find these folks over in Ask. So DePaulAskNetwork.com or DePaulAskNetwork.com is a good way to get started, to look around, and you can send them a note. You can learn more sometimes in a 30-minute conversation than you can in 30 days of research online. It saves you time, and you can go directly to the source. If you want to know what kinds of questions to ask, just go to DePaul's digital, what do we have? It's the Career Center Library. And we have a PDF on step 1, step 2, step 3 on how to conduct an informational interview so you can learn more about what it takes to work abroad or travel domestically or whatever it is that you're interested in. And then professors and advisors, the word advisor is, I'm not, that title isn't, it's everywhere. Your financial aid advisor, your academic advisor, your career advisor, your wellness advisor. And so I think you can ask anyone, really. It doesn't necessarily have to just be your academic advisor. Or in professors, do students know the difference between the professors that are with the departments that have that specific background? That's, I think students know where to go for that. But then a lot of classes are taught by adjunct faculty who actually have full-time jobs that you may not know much about. You may see them in the DePaul space, but what's their day job? That might be an extra job that they're doing. That's an opportunity. And adjunct faculty is a great place to start because these folks are working in different industries and they can tell you maybe a little bit more besides DePaul. Keep in mind also the professors who have been here for a long time, know students, and then know alumni that they can refer you to.
Yeah, or if your professor has research in a particular country, maybe they're from a different country, maybe they have lived abroad. Also, especially for graduate students, looking into like fellowships or different funding for research abroad, your professors might know what is specifically available in your discipline.
Oh my gosh.
Ed went down a LinkedIn rabbit hole and found a bunch of international alums.
I think I took a few extra coffee pills when I did this, but I had a lot of fun doing this because I do like research, and I don't know, I'm afraid to click this, but these are still linked, I think.
Yeah, I think we checked that they were still working. It should go to their LinkedIn page.
Yeah. So yeah, this is what I mean by going on LinkedIn alum. And so that's how I got started. I went into LinkedIn alum and I literally did it like this. If you want to search, just to empower you all, what I would do is click the little tree over here. Are y'all still seeing LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm.
And click the little tree. This is a little trick. And then right here, grab your coffee, grab your tea, and then have fun. I mean, you could look by countries. Anybody want to share a country? Should we look? Anybody want to give it a try? Going once.
Okay, Germany.
Germany. Okay, we have 186 alum in Germany. And you can see they're spread out. What stage entertainment? I don't know. And you can see what they do, what areas they work in. Here's something I would keep in mind. If you're thinking about going to Germany and let's say you want to work in education, are you totally against talking to somebody that works in business? I mean, maybe they're willing to tell you what it's like to transition to Germany, and that's where that's valuable. You can also notice what they studied, and you can see what skills they have. How do your skills match up to theirs? This can also be a way for you to explore career paths that maybe you're not sure would be a good fit. So I can't say enough about that. But yeah, we went into this and dug around and found different companies, different kinds of roles. And so you see ESL, the digital nomad, the customer service rep, all of the ones that we mentioned, we were able to find. So we're going to share this presentation with you, and you can look these people up and more. We can't say enough about the importance of conducting research this way. And if you get a chance, to reach out whenever possible.
And then these are just a couple of resources that we've talked about, a few that we haven't. Going Global is a resource that's available through DePaul that is sort of designed for individuals from different countries who want to work in the US. And it talks about different visas that are available, but it also has guides for job searching in a bunch of different countries. So that's really helpful. They can tell you kind of what's required and how people job search and what the sort of equivalence of, ZipRecruiter, et cetera, is in a different country. We talked about Ask, the Alumni Sharing Knowledge Network. Can't plug enough, especially if you're earlier in your academic career. Pick a language and study it as long as you can. that will be super helpful. A couple different websites. WWOOFing is Worldwide Opportunities on an Organic Farm. So often you can stay for free on an organic farm and work there. This would also be under the kind of lower skill, lower pay, but still really rewarding opportunities. We found a couple fun blog posts about cool jobs that require travel. Dave's ESL Cafe has been around for a really long time. Remote Year is a program that puts you in kind of a cohort with other young adults who are working internationally, and you, I think, live in like 3 different countries over the course of a year, and they help you to find housing and workspace and kind of create community. And then Ed talked a little bit about being a digital nomad, a person who has a kind of remote job and can really live and work anywhere there's Wi-Fi access. So some more information about great jobs if you're thinking about that.
I have to say, the digital nomad is almost becoming like what's not a digital nomad.
Yeah, that's true.
After last year, this has grown tremendously.
That's true.
Well, I know a lot of you have some dreams about where you want to go, and I think one of the things that both of us, and I'm sure that Debbie, you can chime in, but it's, to me, is always a lot of fun to talk about dreams, and it's possible if you can. And I think having those connections, using these resources, just getting started doing the research, there are folks who maybe have done these kinds of things, who maybe created that pipeline for you, and all you have to do is just reach out, and they can make what seems impossible quite possible, or at least doable. So I hope you all find an opportunity to tap into these resources, including both of us. But anything else we should add there, Debbie, before we...
I would agree with that. Even though it was a while ago, I love talking about working and living abroad. If anyone contacted me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I saw you worked in Prague, I want to do that. Or I saw you were an ESL teacher, I want to do that. I would be more than happy to talk to them. I think generally speaking, it's a really rewarding, really positive experience. There's a lot of kind of personal growth that happens living in a different country. I know some people talked about the challenge of acclimating yourself. It is definitely challenging, but it's really rewarding. It's really fun. It's very empowering, what Ed was talking about. So again, I would be very happy. I imagine that, the majority of the people on LinkedIn who are DePaul alums in a different country, or who you find on Ask, would also be super happy to talk to you and to help pass on that knowledge to another Blue Demon.
Yep. I think now we have enough time to maybe take on any questions that you might have.
Yeah.
Curiosities, anything you want to run by us, please let us know.
Questions or comments or thoughts?
We can even have fun talk. Favorite country, most challenging country. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for, describing kind of your own personal experiences. It's really helpful when I've always kind of wanted to go beyond the, US. So yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's, especially thinking about doing that right after graduate school, is a really good time. Kind of similarly for the reasons I mentioned, it's kind of a natural transition point. So it kind of makes sense to consider that as a possibility. But I think you said that you're in environmental science, correct? So I would talk to faculty or advisors in environmental science, find out if anyone has done research abroad or worked for an organization or a company in a different country related to the field. They might be able to give you some insights or connect you to colleagues at universities in a different country.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's
and also keep in mind, as a graduate student for a way long time, way longer than anybody should ever be a graduate student. I know what it's like to get by on nothing. you'd be surprised how affordable other countries are. That's probably the one thing I wish people told me when I was in my 20s in graduate school, is that I could actually live a decent lifestyle on the graduate money that I was living on. Yeah, if you ever want to talk about getting by on nothing, I mean, I never assume that anybody has, I just always like the bottom line it. There's some places where it's quite affordable and still a wonderful place to be.
Yeah. So we have a question that is, how safe is it for people who identify as a minority in other countries? I think that it really depends on the country. I would encourage you to do your research and to find out, how are women treated in this country? How are LGBTQ people treated in this country? How are people of color treated in this country? I think it's going to really depend on where you go, but I think there's a lot of information about that online. I also think if you can find someone who lives in that country who maybe shares some of your identities, you might be able to ask them, especially if they're a DePaul alum. Look for someone who maybe has a travel blog who's from that country or who's living in that country. They might also be able to give you some insights. Yeah, thank you, Kiji. She says following Black solo traveler groups are very helpful. There are a lot of groups like that on Facebook or on other websites or on Reddit that are super helpful in talking very realistically about, this is where I experienced discrimination. This is where I felt really safe. This is what I recommend.
You can also search identities via Ask. So we have drop down menu for that, and people are volunteering based on those identities. And if they have had opportunities to travel or if they are abroad now, that would be a good first place to start.
Yeah, and thank you. Ariel said United Nations have general metrics for women. It's also a great way to find a community. So if you decide to, move to India, you can find, Black expats living in India or women living in Abu Dhabi, or things like that, or LGBTQ people in Chile. Yeah, what was the website, Ed, that you just mentioned?
And Ask, you can search identities.
Yes, that's the
.com.
DePaul Alumni Sharing Knowledge Network. I'll share that again.
Yeah, so if you click network and then scroll over to the right, then you can search by identity. We fought hard for that over the years, and so very proud that that's finally getting rolling.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Last 3 or 4 years now, but finally. So I think that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. With time, it will.
Yeah. I would say also similar to like different blogger networks, there is a lot of travel content happening on Instagram. So that's something to search for different hashtags based on identities or countries that you're interested in. That's a really good place to start as well.
I have some vloggers if anybody wants to, like Jermaine Ellis is a guy that he's a recent college grad that goes around different countries. He talks about that a lot in his videos.
I was gonna add, this is, I'm adding one post to everyone. This is the website of Jessica Nabongo. She's Ugandan American and is the first Black woman to visit every country on the planet. So she's literally been everywhere and can tell you about her experiences in all countries. And she has a very robust Instagram presence also.
Great questions. Other thoughts, curiosities? Like, I don't know, talk about feeling alone, being far from family. We can get personal.
Yeah, that is real. That definitely happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's part of the experience. And it helps you to figure out how you can help yourself get out of that. I think like for me, I really like to stay busy. I really like to be doing things, be outside of my home. This year has obviously been a little challenging in that regard. So I think that always helped me when I was feeling really homesick or really lonely, was just to get out and experience something new. And that helped to, reignite and remind me, oh yeah, I'm here to learn new things and to experience new things. And it's going to be a little bit different, but that's a good thing.
Mine were shorter stints, but it was still 6 weeks. And I always did solo.
Hmm.
So I got to tell you, in a 6 week alone, you do have a lot of time to reflect. And there will be times when you're like, man, I'm by myself. So having lots of folks know where you are as much as possible will help. And just being able to share with them your stories gets you through that time period.
Yeah, we have a question about best methods for learning languages without being in the country of the language you want to learn. Great question. Certainly a ton of information online. Duolingo and other language learning apps I think are super helpful. There are different sites where you can do like chat rooms with people in other countries. I've been doing Spanish lessons via Skype for like 7 years. So like before people were doing online learning. I have a teacher in Guatemala, I have a teacher in El Salvador. So, and that actually I can plug this company, the school that I use, because they have other languages. I think if you're able to work a language into your schedule at DePaul, that is really helpful. If it's a language that's not offered at DePaul, seeing if it's offered at another Chicago area university or another university. I don't know exactly, Ed, you might know more about the policy on transferring in that credit, but you might still be able to get course credit for that. Often in the summers, like as part of summer classes, universities will have different languages in kind of an intensive format. So that's potentially a good time to get to learn that.
I also would throw in to build that even teaching English a way to learn. So it works both ways. And it also allows you to build more experience working with different populations on your resume.
Also, if there is an immigrant community in Chicago or in the city where you are, and there's an opportunity to volunteer with that immigrant community, like in Chicago, you can volunteer with immigrants from,
Heartland Alliance, Refugee One.
Yeah, many different countries, like in Uptown with Vietnamese immigrants, or with various Arabic speaking immigrants from the Middle East, or Spanish speaking immigrants or refugees. So I think that's a really good opportunity as well.
Are y'all excited to get out, get traveling?
Ready to travel again, for sure. Yeah, and it's hard to think about traveling to a different country right now, as much as I love that and want to do that. So I hear you.
It's hard, but it is doable. And there are countries that are open, and there are vloggers that I'm watching that are there now. And I think if y'all want to have that conversation, there's folks in the Career Center that would like to have that conversation with
you. Yeah, but whether you're thinking about
I'm looking forward to.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm looking forward to traveling. However, because I keep up with my industry, which is the entertainment industry. So like I'm more comfortable. I can say that I'm more confident in feeling ready to travel if I was with a company that has been, investing in keeping their workers safe, as opposed to me like doing it on my own. And I'm like running into all of these pandemic deniers, or just people who are taking things up in terms of like taking it into their own interpretation. So like in terms of on my own, not quite yet, but if I was being compensated by someone that is like, we don't want to be liable for your death, then I'm more comfortable.
Sure, absolutely. There's safety as part of a group and part of an infrastructure network. One other thing that we haven't really talked about, but especially those of you who are earlier in your academic careers, but studying abroad, also great opportunity to learn different languages, be in different places. A lot of information on financial aid and scholarship, and some student stories, so you can talk to a student about what it was like to be a person with their particular identities abroad. And that can help you to make connections for after you graduate. Anything else?
Still willing to talk about different countries if anybody's interested.
Okay, we'll put our email addresses in the chat as well. So you can always contact us, and I'm gonna look yours up.
Find that digital nomad site that had all the reviews on like Airbnbs and even climate. It was really pretty well researched. Wi-Fi signal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ooh, we have a question. What countries have you visited and what are your thoughts?
Which continent?
Yeah.
I think if you want to start and you haven't really, you want to go affordable, I'll say this, I've been there and a lot of students go Spain. Really good weather. You have diverse populations. You have architecture that's amazing, and it's way more affordable than other places like Switzerland and England and places. So that would be one of my short lists for if you want to just get started for the first time.
Have you gone to Ghana or anywhere? Where in Africa have you gone?
I've been to South Africa.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have not been to Ghana. It's definitely on my list. I have only been to Morocco so far on the continent of Africa, but definitely recommend visiting that as well. I think it was it was very different from anywhere else that I had been or lived. So it was a cool experience for me.
Do you have any ideas where in Africa you'd like to go?
yeah, I was looking last year at doing a Fulbright scholarship to Ghana, but I chickened out on the application process because it was like pretty long. But yeah, I've wanted to go for a number of years since like undergrad. I had a class and I was able to do like a small research paper on them on the city of Accra, Ghana. So I really want to go there.
Cool. We encourage you to try again with the application. It is a long application process, but often there are faculty or people who can help you with that, especially other people who've gone through the process. And I think if you look on the Fulbright website, it will tell you the past recipients, and you can find someone from DePaul or from an area school or someone in your field and ask them about the process too.
Yeah, we usually have about 8 students each year. And Phil Stolley teaches a 2-credit class that helps you prepare for those applications.
Oh, there you go.
The Fulbright and the Boren. So, and even if you are about to graduate, you could maybe take a look at the syllabus just to get some ideas about some basic tips.
Yeah. We have a question about what websites do we recommend if you want to travel and work in the US?
Favorite. I have a favorite.
Yeah.
It looks very 2005. Just saying. Okay, so this is an uncle-y looking website, but it's when I went to Guatemala, I met a lot of recent college grads and a restaurant, and they were all just chatting it up. And I walked over and introduced myself, said I was a college advisor. They said to go to this one. So it is DevNet Jobs, and I believe that's .org, or is it DevNet Jobs? I think it's .org.
DevNetJobs.org.
I think it's great for a couple different reasons. Most of those positions require at least almost all of them a bachelor's degree, many a master's degree. A lot of them are around things like the environment, empowerment, communications, justice. If any of that resonates with you, I think it resonates with a lot of DePaul students. I find this is especially if you're interested in abroad, you can do some domestic in DC and New York. But that's another rabbit hole. Again, it looks very 2005, but legit. So that's my fave.
Yeah, I'm adding Idealist, which looks like a slightly more updated version of a similar site. This is also for nonprofits and international organizations. And then I would also add, Ed talked about working as a college recruiter. And a lot of universities will have jobs in admissions or recruiting. So I'm going to add higher ed jobs. That's where universities across the country and in some other countries will post jobs. And you can also go to the individual universities pages. That's often the admissions officers are relatively recent grads or young alum who are willing to travel domestically for these different recruiting events and to talk to prospective students.
There are international admissions jobs,
Also, yes, also that.
and we have some alumni who have done them. So if you want to explore that either on your own or want to ask me, please let me know.
All right. Any final questions? We have just a couple minutes left. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.